Everyone turned their backs on her when she needed help the most. Cold nights followed her everywhere. Hungry days weakened her body, and silence answered every cry for help. She walked through towns where doors closed faster than she could knock, judged without a word spoken. People saw her pain but chose to ignore it, as if she did not exist. Her past clung to her like a curse, and hope slowly slipped away. Then on one quiet evening, far from the noise of the world, a rich cowboy noticed her standing. Alone, he was a man with money, power, and land, yet his life felt emptied. He could have looked away like everyone else, but something stopped him. In that moment, one simple decision was made. The door opened. A life changed. What he did next would shock those who once rejected her, and neither of them knew that this single choice would create a bond stronger than blood and fill a loneliness money never could. He was known as a lonely millionaire cowboy, wealthy but empty inside. He owned wide lands, strong horses, and endless money. Yet every night his house stayed silent. He had success, but no family to share it with, no laughter to warm his home. She was a broken woman with no home, no family, and no hope. Life had taken everything from her piece by piece, leaving her with nothing but pain and fear. She moved through life unseen, carrying wounds no one cared to heal. Her days were filled with struggle, and her nights were filled with tears. She never imagined kindness still existed. Their worlds were never meant to cross, but fate quietly brought them closer. Two lonely souls walking different paths, about to meet at the exact moment they both needed saving. What began as a simple encounter would soon change their lives forever, turning emptiness into purpose and despair into unexpected hope. As fate pulled their paths closer, she stepped into a world that had already judged her before she could speak. Her presence invited cold stares, low whispers, and eyes filled with doubt wherever she went. No one asked her story, yet everyone believed they knew it. Shops refused service, faces turned away, and kindness felt like a language long forgotten. She learned to walk with her head down, not because she felt shame, but because hope had become painful to carry. Each rejection pressed deeper into her heart, reminding her that society had written her ending without listening. Her past followed quietly, not as truth, but as rumor twisted by strangers who never cared to understand. She knocked on doors that never opened, stood in crowds that made her feel invisible, and waited for help that never arrived. The world had decided she was not worth saving, and every silence confirmed that cruel decision. With every passing day, her strength faded, but her will to survive remained. She held on to small moments, a warm sunrise, a brief smile from a stranger, anything that proved she was still alive. Yet even those moments slipped away too quickly. Nights felt longer, filled with questions she had no answers to. She wondered how life had become a constant test she never passed, how one mistake could erase her worth in the eyes of others. The loneliness she carried grew heavier than hunger, and fear became her closest companion. She wanted to believe tomorrow could change, but tomorrow looked exactly like yesterday. Her heart learned to expect disappointment before hope could form, protecting itself from breaking again. She was not asking for comfort or sympathy, only a chance to breathe without judgment, but that seemed too much. For a world obsessed with perfection, she moved forward because stopping meant surrender, and surrender felt worse than pain. Each step carried exhaustion, yet also quiet courage she did not realize she possessed. Unseen strength guided her through crowded streets and empty nights, even when her faith was barely holding together. The rejection she faced did not scream loudly, but whispered constantly, cutting deeper with each ignored plea. Still, she survived every moment she was told she did not belong, not knowing that these very struggles were shaping the person she was becoming. Unknown to her, each closed door was guiding her toward one that would finally open, one decision that would challenge the cruel judgment of society forever. The world believed she was broken beyond repair, but her story was far from finished, and the silence around her was only building toward a moment that would force everyone to listen. As silence thickened around her fading hope, one presence finally broke through the cold distance. The cowboy noticed her pain not with curiosity, but with quiet understanding. He watched how she stood apart from others, how her eyes carried exhaustion deeper than hunger. He did not rush toward her or demand explanations. Instead, he approached slowly, as if afraid sudden kindness might frighten her away. There were no questions about where she came from or what she had lost. He saw a human being before a story, and that changed everything. With calm words and steady patience, he offered her food without conditions, shelter without demands, and respect without judgment. She hesitated, trained by disappointment to doubt generosity. But his tone held no trace of pity or control. When she stepped inside his home, the warmth felt unfamiliar, almost unreal that a simple meal waited on the table, and for the first time in a long while, she ate without fear of being sent away. The house carried silence too, but it was different from the empty nights she knew. This silence felt safe. Days passed gently, and the cowboy allowed space instead of pressure. He treated her presence as normal, never reminding her that she was a guest or a burden. She helped where she could, cleaning slowly, learning the rhythm of the ranch, feeling useful again. That he noticed small changes in her. The way her shoulders relaxed, the way her voice returned little by little. He listened when she spoke and stayed quiet when she could not. That balance rebuilt something fragile inside her. She began sleeping through the night, her dreams no longer filled with panic. The kindness she received did not arrive loudly, but settled deeply, healing wounds she thought would never close. The cowboy found himself changed as well. His home no longer echoed with emptiness. Her quiet presence filled rooms with meaning, and simple routines felt lighter. He realized kindness was not something he was giving away, but something returning to him through her growing strength. Trust formed carefully, not through promises, but through consistency. She learned his kindness was real because it never asked for repayment. As time moved forward, her fear slowly loosened its grip, and gratitude replaced survival instinct. She understood this man was different from those who turned away. He saw value where others saw flaws, and that recognition restored her dignity. The unexpected kindness did more than offer safety. It gave her permission to believe she mattered again, unknown to both of them. This simple act of compassion was setting the foundation for something far greater than shelter or comfort. It was the beginning of a connection neither had searched for, yet both desperately needed, and the quiet choice he made would soon transform two lonely lives into something resembling family. Days moved forward without either of them noticing how deeply their lives were beginning to connect. She found comfort in simple tasks, feeding animals, fixing small things, learning the quiet rhythm of the ranch. Each morning felt lighter than the last, as if purpose was slowly returning to her hands. She no longer felt like she was merely surviving, but contributing in a way that mattered. The cowboy watched this transformation with silent appreciation. He never praised loudly, yet his steady trust spoke clearly. With time, laughter entered the house softly, first as small smiles, then as genuine moments shared over simple meals. The sound surprised them both, because neither remembered when joy had last felt natural. Conversations grew longer, not rushed by fear or doubt. She spoke of ordinary things, the sky, the land, the animals, avoiding her past until she felt strong enough to face it. He listened without interrupting, allowing her voice to exist without pressure. That patience deepened her trust, and she began to feel safe enough to be herself again. The ranch no longer felt like borrowed space, but a place where she belonged. The cowboy noticed changes within himself as well. His evenings were no longer silent. His mornings no longer heavy with loneliness. That he found comfort in routine shared with someone who appreciated small gestures. He realized he looked forward to returning home, not because of wealth or comfort, but because of connection. She noticed his quiet habits, his thoughtful pauses, his gentle nature hidden beneath a strong exterior. They learned each other through actions rather than words, building something real without defining it. As weeks turned into something more meaningful, the house reflected their growing bond. Empty rooms felt alive, and simple moments carried weight. She brought warmth into spaces he had forgotten, and he offered stability she never thought she deserved. They supported each other without making promises, because neither wanted to break something fragile. This unspoken understanding strengthened their connection more than words could. She felt her confidence return gradually, standing taller, smiling freely, believing again in her own worth. He felt purpose beyond success. realizing that presence mattered more than possessions. The bond that formed was not dramatic or loud, but steady and sincere. It grew through shared silences, mutual respect, and care shown in small ways. He understood that he was no longer living alone, even when standing quietly beside her. She understood that she was no longer invisible, even when saying nothing. This realization settled deeply into both their hearts. The warmth filling the home was not temporary comfort, but something lasting, reshaping their understanding of family. They did not notice the exact moment it happened, but one day, he realized the emptiness he carried for years was gone. And she realized the fear that once defined her had finally loosened its hold. Their bond was strong enough to face whatever waited ahead. And although neither spoke of the future, they both sensed that their lives were moving towards something neither had ever known before. The calm they had built was shaken when shadows from her past quietly returned, testing the fragile peace she had begun to trust. She sensed it before it fully arrived, that familiar tightening in her chest, that warning learned through years of survival. Fear crept back into her thoughts, whispering that safety never lasted and that happiness was borrowed. She grew distant, her smiles fading, her movements cautious again. The ranch no longer felt untouched by the outside world, and she began preparing herself to leave before she could be forced away. She believed disappearance was the only way to protect what little peace he had found, even if it meant breaking her own heart. One evening, the truth surfaced through trembling words and unsteady breath. She expected anger, disappointment, or silence. Instead, she was met with steady eyes and calm resolve. The cowboy listened without interrupting, absorbing every detail without judgment. When she finished speaking, she waited for rejection she had learned to expect, but it never came. He did not raise his voice or step back. He simply chose to stay. That choice shattered her fear more deeply than any comfort ever had. That he stood beside her, not in front to control, nor behind to hide, but equal in the moment. He made it clear that running was sometimes braver than leaving, and that being chosen meant more than being saved. That moment reshaped her understanding of belonging. She was no longer someone hiding from consequences, but someone worthy of standing her ground. His presence steadied her racing thoughts, and his calm gave her courage. She felt seen completely, not just in her healing, but in her brokenness too. That acceptance lifted a weight she had carried for years. The fear that once ruled her choices loosened its grip, and clarity replaced panic. She understood that love did not demand perfection, but honesty and commitment. The ranch became more than a place of shelter. It became a symbol of trust earned through action. She no longer measured her worth by mistakes, but by the strength she showed in facing them. The cowboy also changed in that moment, realizing that protecting someone did not mean owning their battles, but sharing them. That he learned that standing beside another person required courage greater than solitude. That night marked a turning point neither could undo, where fear lost control and loyalty took its place. Their bond deepened into something unbreakable, built not on comfort alone, but on resilience tested and proven. What followed would challenge them further, but from that moment forward, she knew she was no longer walking away from life. She was standing firmly within it, with someone who chose her even when leaving seemed easier. She did not just find a home. She became his family. Through every trial and shadow of her past, she discovered a place where she was wanted, needed, and cherished. His house, once silent and cold, now echoed with laughter, conversation, and warmth that money could never buy. They shared quiet mornings on the porch, working side by side in the fields, and evenings by the fire, where words were not always needed to feel connected. She gave him something far beyond companionship, a heart renewed, hope restored, and a love that mended the emptiness he had carried for years. That he finally understood that wealth meant nothing without someone to share it with. And that true richness came from giving and receiving trust, care, and unwavering support. Their bond became unshakable, proof that kindness and courage could rewrite destinies. Sometimes, the people you save end up saving you more, turning lonely lives into a story of unbreakable love, belonging, and forever.